Tuesday's there to get thrown away. Wednesday is like some little child. Thursday's there to drive you wild. But Fridays, oh yeah, you're the black sheep, just like me.
How's everybody doing tonight? Yeah, it's not every night I get to walk on stage right after they play You Give Love a Bad Name. So, but tonight we're going to give love a good name. We're going to give love a good name. I'm Mark Etkind. I'm the CEO of the Computer History Museum. I want to thank everybody for coming here in person tonight. I want to thank everybody who's online tonight. It's going to be a really fun evening. Question for everybody. What year do you think was the first computer dating? Anybody have a guess? 65. 65. Very good answer, but not right. Anybody else? We're going to hear a lot more about 1965 in a little while. 71. 71? No, there you're going the wrong direction. 1959. 1959, a Stanford class experimented with computer dating. So computer and online digital dating goes way back to the very early days of computing. We're going to learn a lot more about that tonight. It's just such a great topic for us here. We talk a lot about the perils of technology and the challenges of technology. Online and digital dating, not perfect, but it's one of those things that really does bring people together when it's successful. So I'm really proud to talk about a topic that builds community tonight. Speaking of community, I'd like everybody to be part of tonight's event. So please scan the QR code. You're going to have questions. You can give us feedback. You can give us money if you're so inclined. But really, use it to answer questions and the like. It's going to be a fun evening, a really great way to celebrate an early Valentine's Day. And with that, I would love to introduce tonight's host, Hannah Kozlowska. Hannah has written for Quartz, the New York Times. She's got a new book. I kid you not, the title's called You Up. It is a history of social dating, and thank you very much for joining us tonight, Hannah. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. The book is not out yet. Next year. Just saying. Hello. Good evening. First, I'd like to welcome via Zoom Jeff Tarr, who is one of the founders of Operation Match, the first. Well, not the first, because Mark was right. 1959 was the Stanford experiment, but 1965 was when we had the first widespread computer dating service in this country. So I will maybe introduce him in a little bit of an unusual way, but in 1965 and 1966, students at elite college campuses got these pamphlets stuffed in their cubby holes, their mail cubby holes. They said, if you're the adventurous type, you'll probably want to take part in one of the most interesting social experiments ever. And that social experiment was Operation Match. A student-run endeavor, Jeff was 19 when he started it, offered to match up men and women with the help of an all-knowing IBM computer. And punch cards, like this, very much like this. I think all of you got one. And one of those students, as I said, was Jeff. Where is he? Somewhere on Zoom. So welcome to Jeff Tarr. Hi, Jeff.
Hi there.
Hi. Jeff, I just wanted to start with the basic question, which is, can you tell us a bit about why you even had the idea to match up people? Like, what was the market opportunity, so to speak? Why did you need a computer to find a date?
Well, thank you for asking me to talk tonight. We were two males in college who were very unlucky dating. We had gone to many mixers, and they didn't really work out. And I had two things that happened to me. One, I was a scholarship kid, and I won $450 on a quiz show called Password, not the same password that we're used to. And I and another friend of mine named Vaughn Morrow III were talking about it. And I had worked for 2 summers for an actuarial firm in New York. So I had some experience, not with computers, but with IBM machines. In those days, you didn't have computers. You had IBM machines, excuse me, which stood for International Business Machines. So I had $450. He had a little more, and we started it. And we wrote a questionnaire just on, with a legal pad, and we had only 75 questions. So I decided we should answer it once for yourself and once for your ideal date. So we got up to 150 questions, and my partner was very neat, and it looked very professional, although it was printed on, manila paper. And we sent these questionnaires out to the New England area. And what I did when it started, I called up all the local newspapers and told them what we were doing was a great social experiment. And I told the newspaper editors that any returns from their college, they get 10% for the money. And sure enough, we get 7,800 responses, paying us $3 each for the questionnaire.
Right.
And we had the questionnaires key punched, as in a 1401, which I remember being out there and seeing a 1401 at the Computer History Museum. And we gave everyone, the males and the females, about 6 ideal dates. And they got their questionnaires answered in about 3 weeks. So it was 3 weeks before filling it out, 3 weeks for processing, or 6 weeks before you got the questionnaires, got the results. And surprising even to all of us was how excited the people
Right.
were meeting via the computer.
I just want to give the audience a taste of what some of these questions were. Remember, they were devised by 19-year-olds and Harvard 19-year-olds. So we had, basic things like height, age, major, SAT score, right? Very key. They had your interest section. So you had playing bridge or sunbathing or community service. There was a question that stumped people, and I've interviewed people who met using Operation Match because these people are around, right? Like 60 years ago. And this one question stumped a lot of people, which was, members of the opposite sex consider me beautiful or very handsome, attractive, average, or unattractive. And this was very difficult for people to answer because obviously there were no questions, right? You had to show yourself somehow. So Jeff, you already told us a little bit about how you came up with these questions, which was just with a notepad, right? But I know you also studied psychology. How did that play into it?
We had to find more questions. So with the first questions we asked were the obvious questions. And one mistake that we made on the first questionnaire is the first question was sex, male or female. And it being the first question, quite often women hit number one because it was question number one. So they said they were males. There was a girl who I still remember her name who went to Vassar called Amy Fiedler. And because she answered the first question incorrectly, she got 110 matches. No, we asked the obvious questions, but there weren't that many. So we put some in there that are called, I think, situation questions, and we asked questions about it. And we really wanted to have a more professional thing, and it was done by the two of us. The next time we did the questionnaire, we got 2 professors from Harvard to quote, make one up, and they did it a little more professionally, and we printed it out in colors. The first one was just black and white, but we had colors, and it was turned out to be very, very popular. And so we had 7,800 applicants for the first matching. And for that summer, we spent a lot of time in getting people to represent us in different sections of the country, Chicago, New York, North Carolina, California. And then in the fall and in the spring, we had 200,000 applicants. It was a big fad. And we, as you know, we got publicity. Look magazine, for Valentine's edition in 1966, featured us on the cover. And that was the way that we had just tremendous, excuse me, tremendous popularity. And we didn't pay anything to get it.
Right. Right. I want to read a little quote from that piece. That piece is so fun. It's available online if anyone wants to look it up. But this was actually Gene Shalit, who would later become a TV star, so to speak. So he wrote, "From Boston to Berkeley, computer dates are sweeping the campus, replacing old-fashioned boy meets girl devices. Punch bowls are out, punch cards are in." And Jeff, so I wanted to ask you, why do you think it hit such a nerve? Like, why was it so popular in the end?
Well, what happened was at first it was a new thing, and college kids always, I guess, like new things. But it really didn't work as well as the subsequent, kind of matching systems. And so it was like the hula hoop. For 2 years, it was a big fad. And then the third year, people said, I've already done it. But as I told you earlier, we had a number of presentations because my wife wrote a book about Operation Match, and we made presentations in different communities. And almost every place that we made a presentation, one couple came up to us after it was through, and they were said, we got married over 50 years ago by Operation Match. Operation Match worked on a very simplistic basis, but it was nowhere near as sophisticated as I assume they have now.
Right. I mean, you told me in the past that all these detailed questions were not that important, right? It was
That's
just
right.
a couple of sorts that the computer did.
That's right. Of the 150 questions that they had answered, effectively, we only probably used 10.
But people loved filling it out, right? It was really fun. Like I spoke to, a woman, actually, actress Mimi Kennedy. I don't know if people know her. She was in Woody Allen's Midnight in Paris. She met her husband that way, and she's talking about how in their dorm room they would gather and all fill out and like learn about each other. So it was like a social activity too.
I remember when we were trying to get the product sold. Myself and one of the partners took a ride out to Weston, Massachusetts, where there are all kinds of girls' schools like Smith and Mount Holyoke. And they all answered in a group. The 20 girls would get together and they'd all answer the questions collectively. So we had a lot of girls as well as boys initially.
Yeah. Just because this is the Computer History Museum, I wanted to very briefly ask you about the process itself of, you couldn't just pop into the computer lab, right, at Harvard. You had to, it was quite involved.
No, Harvard didn't want us to use their name at all. They wanted us not to use the name. So we rented a 1401 that was put out by a subsidiary of IBM called Service Bureau Corporation, SBC. And they charge pretty high prices for an hour of their time between 9 and 5, Mondays through Fridays. But on Sunday mornings, like 1 to 3 in the mornings, they practically charge nothing. So we key punched through, had a bunch of the key punching done by someone else. And then we took the key punch cards that you showed earlier, and we went to SBC's operation. It was in Roxbury, and it cost us practically nothing because they didn't charge much if you use the machines, Sunday morning 1 to 3.
Right, right. I think we have to wrap up for now, but we would love for you to stick around. Or maybe, I guess if you have any thoughts on your legacy and the current moment of online dating. I know you're, coincidentally or not, your daughter married one of the founders of OkCupid, fun fact, right? So I don't know, I guess to wrap up, do you have any reflections on the industry today and what has come of it?
I haven't followed it too much, but I think a couple of years ago, I looked in the Wall Street about how many companies were public in this area, and they thought the market value of the companies in the computer dating area was about 7 billion with a B. It's just a very important thing. And I think many people use the computer just to get started. I think the numbers are somewhere between 35 and 40% of the public uses the computer.
Yeah, I think it's a little less than that, but something around that. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. But thank you so much, Jeff, and we hope you stick around for our next guests.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So first, I'd like to welcome to the stage Gary Kremen. Gary, when he was in his late 20s, was looking for dates through personal ads, through 900 numbers, if any of you remember those. I don't. But that just wasn't cutting it. And he was also very good with computers. He was at Stanford Business School, I believe. And he devised what would become Match.com, the iconic dating service, the first, biggest one of its kind. He would also become widely known for his landmark legal battle establishing property rights in domain names. So we'll talk about that a little bit. So please welcome Gary Kremen.
Good to see you again.
Thank you. And next we have Steve Dean. Steve Dean, who's one of my favorite people to talk dating with. Steve is a dating consultant, advisor, and event designer. He has analyzed, by analyzing, I mean used also, 350 dating apps, and consulted for dating apps like OkCupid, Hinge, Coffee Meets Bagel, and Farmers Only, which is my favorite. Please welcome Steve Dean. Thank you both for being here. I want to start with Gary and the domain thing that I mentioned. And it's a little bit of the same question that I asked Jeff about the market opportunity. So in the early 90s, you bought jobs.com, housing.com, autos.com, sex.com, and match.com. And I'm wondering why you decided that Match was the best opportunity.
Sure. So it was actually so early they were free. So there was no buying. You just filled out a form, one per person. Well, my vision was classified advertising. I realized I was super poor and people who own newspapers were super rich, and I wanted to be one of those super rich people. So I did some research. I realized, newspapers, those classified ads, and then the alternative newspapers, the personals, they were basically a bunch of junk that were wrapped around the personals. That's how they made their money. And I go, I want to be like that. And I was doing a lot of dating. I was living maybe 4 miles from here. And that was kind of the genesis. We could go more in it, but you want to talk about the intellectual property thing?
Sure.
What do you want to talk about?
Well, no, there's a whole book written about it. Recommend Players Ball.
Okay.
Gary has mixed feelings about it.
No, it's all good. But when I actually raised some venture capital for Match.com, parent company Electric Classified's idea to do classified advertising, with Match being the sizzle, so to speak, they go, we can't have that name Sex.com, it's too embarrassing. In fact, it was part of a long string of embarrassing things that we would fight over. So one morning I discovered it was gone, stolen by a 5-time convicted felon who just got out of prison for bankruptcy, fraud, obstruction of justice, making false statements under oath. So we went from prison to a house in Rancho Santa Fe, which is like a house in Atherton, free and clear.
Right, right.
So I eventually sued him, and Network Solutions, VeriSign, the company that let him take it away. And after long tribulations, feel free to the book or the movie in production, I got it back and I took his house and I lived there. So it was like from nothing to living in Atherton equivalent.
Right, but demographics played a role too, right? I mean, can we pull up the first slide? People were getting married later and later. Women had entered the workforce. The opportunities to meet potential partners were changing, right?
That's right.
There's a famous anecdote that Match's servers would go in overdrive during lunchtime because people only had internet at work. So yeah, here we go. Here we see the increasing number of singles. Ooh. So I wondered if you could talk about that a little.
Sure. So many people don't know this, but the first incarnation was email-based because hardly anyone had web browsers at the time in 93 and 94. So I designed this thing that you would actually send commands in email, because you have to remember back then, it seems like maybe a couple of the people in the audience, but just a couple are as old as me. But what happened is companies started getting on things like Lotus Notes for using internal for their workflow, and then they started hooking those up to the internet. So you could send email from HP to IBM. I don't know if anyone remembers that. And that was a big deal. So I said, okay, why don't we send commands in email, like send picture of person 38? And that's how we started. And that, when I started that, it grew at 2 to 3% a day.
Wow. I actually, sorry, I went a little ahead, but we have some questions for you guys. If we could put the questions on screen. There we go. I wanted to ask people in the audience whether they had met using any of these following dating services, right? So computer dating, I don't know, that would be fun if anyone of you did. Video dating in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, if anyone remembers Great Expectations. It's a forgotten part of history that is pretty amazing. Then we have BBS, Usenet, CompuServe, all those services, which actually had specific matchmaking companies as well, which is kind of incredible. Online dating in the pre-mobile era, so before 2009, online dating on an app, and then none. So that's our first question. Then the next one, oh wow, okay. No computer daters. Video dating, we have a video dater, that's amazing. Okay, please find me later. BBS too, wow, that's great, that's great. Okay, thank you. Can we do the next question? Well, yeah, that's just a basic one. I wonder what the audience breakdown here is. Okay, look at that, Gary. What's your legacy?
Wow. Don't yell at me.
I met my husband online dating, just so everyone knows. And then we have a last one. Would you ever use AI to help you craft a message to a potential date? Yes or no?
Will you ever admit to
All right, this is a very particular crowd. Silicon Valley. Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
All right, half and half. All right, okay, we can go back to Match. Thank you everyone for voting. Gary, you mentioned pictures, and I'm maybe showing my age here, but anytime I read about the history of Match or interview people who used it in the early years, I'm struck by just how much everyone talks about scanning their physical photos. I've lost count of how many times I heard the word Kinkos. And I'm just wondering whether you could talk a little bit about the role of pictures in creating Match, because it was big.
Sure. In fact, kind of part of the origin story is I started another company before this, taking software and putting it on quarter-inch cartridges. I don't know if anyone remembers that, like from Sun workstations. And why relevant is one day we got a purchase order and it came from a woman, and I never got an email from a woman before. And I turned to my business partner and I said, look at this, we got a purchase order from a woman. And he goes, that's great, we can eat this weekend. I go, no, do you think she's cute? And he looked at me like I had 5 eyes. And I'm like saying, well, what if I could convince her to go to Kinko's and scan her pictures, because MIME, that protocol for attaching things, just came out. And he thought I was crazy. So we used to send people to Kinko's, put their zip code in and send them to the closest Kinko's to get their picture. Because who had scanners?
Right.
No one did.
Right.
94? No.
I mean, still, I mean, I spoke to people who in 2000 did the same thing, right? But they were committed. Although a lot of people liked that pictures were not that important, right? And then it was like the epistolary nature.
Yeah, that was kind of a gender divide type of thing, at least in the heterosexual side of it, the picture issue.
Please elaborate.
Men wanted to see the pictures, women didn't.
Okay.
And now when it was men versus men, hard to say, but when it was men, there was a lot of gender divides early on, and that was kind of the hardest customer acquisition issue.
Okay, let's talk about that, because one of the things that I really appreciate about the early history of Match and the way that Gary did it early on was that when you were starting out, you pretty quickly realized that you needed input of women to create the service, right? It couldn't be just a bunch of dudes.
Shocking, asking
Right.
customers who would
Right.
know. Well, you know, the theory, at least back then, things have changed, as you know, but one woman would bring 10 guys, so why not just market the one? It's higher leverage.
Right, but you interviewed a bunch of women, you
Interviewed
hired a bunch
women,
of women.
brought on a bunch of women staff, which was unheard of in technology
Right.
companies. People didn't do that other than admins. I was saying, no, product managers, people who, developers were tough and, you know, kind of like today, but still, I think that was one of the differences.
Yeah.
And we learned things that you wouldn't know if you didn't talk to a customer.
Well, tell me, because it wasn't just about bringing women in.
It was
I know
listening.
It wasn't.
You know, something men don't understand, that listening thing.
So
I heard a rumor that men don't listen.
I want to know what were your and your team's blind spots? Like what did the female executives or the women, because I heard you basically would go up to women on the street, is that right, or something?
That's right.
Yeah, well, what did you learn?
Well, things that maybe weren't as obvious to me, or at least in the beginning, like the role of privacy and security. We invented those online anonymous profiles because they didn't want to be stalked. And I don't know if that would have been obvious to a man, at least then. Things like that. The ability to block people. All innovations that we had are just around by interviewing and said, oh, I'm getting 50 messages. I got to stop.
Right, you can thank Gary for blocking.
Thank you.
It's very important.
The original ghost, the technology behind ghosting.
And you can thank him for a lot of things, or not.
I should have got a patent on that one. I got some patents on some other pretty important stuff, but I didn't think about ghosting.
Right.
Dang.
Here's a question for both of you, and you know, I think pretty much everyone knows this, it's logical, but there's a fundamental issue in this industry, and it has been really from the very beginning. There's a paradox in the business model, right? When a customer who is looking for a long-term partner successfully finds one, the service loses a client, right? So Gary, I'm wondering whether this was something you were thinking of early on. And Steve, modern apps seem to be particularly successful at keeping users coming back again and again. And so I'm wondering, even if their slogan is designed to be deleted, I'm subtweeting someone here. But I'm wondering, in your experience, how do modern dating executives think about this? Whether they do at all, I don't know.
You go first.
Sure. Let's see. I think it's worth noting that the mere idea of a woman is enough to keep men on a dating app. And so regardless of whether there are actual women on the app, if you simply present the idea of a woman, maybe you've received a message from someone and you don't yet see their photo or who it is, or maybe you do see a photo but it's a paid model. That's been fairly common throughout the industry for many years. And so all you really need is the idea just to get the men in the door in the first place. When you have actual women on the platform, then a lot more can happen and you have far more success likelihood.
Right, but what do we do with the customer acquisition problem? Like with this paradox, fundamental paradox?
It continues to be a problem. And you said the dating app would lose one client if they make a match, but in reality they lose two, and potentially two paying clients, and that can be quite dangerous for their model. And so part of the challenge is always developing apps that get users to refer more users in, because if you fail to do that, then you end up needing to pay through the nose for advertising, usually on Facebook and Google marketplaces, because they're the monopolists in the field.
Right. So Gary, was this something that you guys were thinking about, or?
Sure. I mean, even today we think of, customer acquisition costs and the economic value of a customer. How long are they going to stay? Maybe in the beginning we weren't, thinking about how to stretch it out that much because the market was very large when you're growing at 2 to 3% a day. Now, if you get a new customer, you're taking it away from someone else. So it's a tougher business model today in that way.
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems irresolvable unless profits weren't involved. I don't know. I mean, is there anyone in the industry who's actually approaching it in a way that makes sense, you think, Steve?
Well, there's a couple different factors to consider. So for one, users don't necessarily stay off the app even if they leave because relationships end. They usually end at the 3-month mark, the 2-year mark, the 7-year mark, and as I know from my clients in the coaching side of things, sometimes a relationship will end and I will get a call the very next day, sometimes same day, saying, Steve, I'm out of that relationship. I got to get back on the apps. I don't know what's going on, but I'm already horny and lonely again. So. So users do come back, and so the lifetime user value is calculated as not just the initial time when the user comes in, because users may only stay for an hour, a day, a month, 3 months if you're lucky. But over the course of a lifetime, they may come back every several months, every several years, based on usually when the relationships fail, or what is more common lately, they will burn out within the first couple months of using a series of apps. The average user uses between 3 and 7 apps. Men usually are closer to the side of 7, women closer to the side of 4.
At the same time, just so everyone.
At the same time.
Yeah.
But after the burnout phase, when people get horny and lonely again and realize that meeting offline is quite difficult and challenging and involves a lot of face-to-face, facing your own vulnerability, facing the risk of rejection, which dating apps magically have resolved for the most part. They made the cost of rejection incredibly low because you can swipe 1,000 times in an hour, or you can have an auto swiper do it for you, and therefore obviate rejection entirely and only have to worry about the matches that you do receive.
Right. What do you tell a person who comes to you the same day they were dumped or something, and they want to go back, or they don't?
I try not to start with judgment. I first think about, why. Let's analyze why this relationship ended and what you have learned from it and what you've learned about yourself and how you want to then translate what you now know about yourself into a future profile. And also, whatever apps you may have been on when you were last in this relationship, the market may have changed because on average, just like any startup, a dating app is as likely to fail within its first 1 to 3 years as any typical startup. And so every time I try to make a diagram of here's the current marketplace of dating apps, by the very next month, the very next year, multiple will have already fallen.
Right. It's a very fatty business, I would say. Another question for both of you. So there's a long-standing debate, both in the dating industry and among academics, as to whether we can truly predict whether two people are compatible, especially in the long term, right? And whether anything other than fairly basic things like age, income, religion truly matters. So, minute things like, when Jeff asked about SAT scores. And I know Match started compatibility matching after you left, Gary, right? But I'm wondering where you both stand on this. Can a top-down algorithm effectively decide if two people work, or should it be up to them?
Well, I actually want to hear from you about
Okay, go
whether there's a secret conspiracy, because I heard during a conference once that Match was too effective in the early years, between 2004 and 2010, in its algorithm, and they were losing users too quickly from matching them too effectively, and so they had to throttle it and make it a little bit harder to match and give you some more of the bottom of the barrel people rather than the people who are your best, most compatible people in order not to get users to leave too quickly. So I do think personally that dating apps have largely solved a couple components of compatibility. Within seconds of you starting to use an app, sometimes even before, from the moment you've uploaded your first photo, there are algorithms that can be deployed that start showing you people you're more likely to be attracted to because the average person is attracted to people who look like them. And so apps can solve for the attraction side of it, but in terms of longer term compatibility, it gets a lot harder because with each additional year you expect people's lives to coalesce. The chances of that actually happening, given that human compatibility is this massive multivariate matrix that's constantly changing as we learn about ourselves and grow and evolve, it's hard to maintain that match. And so I think the initial match is what most apps have been striving toward. Tinder did it best and most effectively by making it so tens or hundreds of millions of people can directly match, AKA find each other attractive. That's the easy part. But long term is quite difficult.
You heard a good thing about Tinder here, everyone. Remember that. Gary, you made some faces.
I think there's some truth in what you're saying. It's a multivariable problem, but I think there's an element of randomness that is really hard to quantify, and I think probably most people here experience it isn't always algorithmic based. In fact, I think I can probably see more non-algorithmic based than algorithmic based. Maybe on initial attraction, but once you get beyond that, I don't think it's accurate. Well, you're not saying it is either. It's multivariable. And I think we all have experience on why it's not multivariable. I mean, you just don't know.
Right. In the early days, right, when Match was founded, people, there's some great coverage from the mid-90s where, it's like this great innovation over the personal ad where you can actually filter and you can search but you had to sift through lists and lists of people to kind of do it yourself in a way, right?
But it's kind of like machine learning. What are you really maximizing that they email? You don't know what they're doing 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years. So you don't really have a good training data set to do it. And I think most people's evidence says it's hard to do algorithmically long-term compatibility.
Yeah.
There's a big random element.
Actually, OkCupid, they have admitted, right, that they insert, because they're one of the most, or old OkCupid, they were quite transparent about how they formed, Steve is laughing, how they created their algorithms. And I spoke to one of the founders and they were like, yeah, like randomness, we introduced an element of randomness into it, right? Like Gary was saying, that's important, right? Before we turn to the current state of the industry, I wanted to talk a little bit about the biggest transformation since the founding of Match, mobile and the rise of Tinder. Within a little over a year since its founding, Tinder reached 50 million users. And can we pull up the second chart, actually? There we go. 2013 is when a big study from Stanford assessed was the moment where online dating surpassed meeting through friends as the most popular way of meeting a potential partner in the United States. Tinder was founded in 2012. So Steve, you and I are in the cohort that made it thrive, millennials here. And I'm wondering whether you have thoughts as to why. Like, why did it, hit such fertile ground with our cohort?
Yeah, I think to explain it and contextualize it, I'll start with why OkCupid did a good job. Because right before Tinder came out, OkCupid, at least when I first got introduced in 2010, it was founded in 2004, I invited 50 people on the spot upon using OkCupid to try it out for themselves, because they had a test that you could take that was called the dating persona test. And it was a way of learning really quickly a lot about yourself and who you might be compatible with. And it suddenly provided you not just like an archetype, kind of like the Myers-Briggs, but it would give you a sense of who else on the platform might actually be a good fit for you. And so every profile came appended, if they had done the test, with their own dating persona. And so giving people additional layers of insight into who might be a good fit for them was one of those initial hurdles that happened between 2004 and 2010.
280,000 questions on OkCupid, users submitted.
I answered about 2,000 over the years. And my first ever online date turned out to be with a 99% match, and it was someone who I ended up in a 5.5-year relationship with, and our first date was about 18 hours long. So I was sold very early on the promise of algorithmic dating. When Tinder came out, once again, I did invite 50 people the very first day, because what I noticed as soon as I used it was that the ROI on attentional spend became astronomical. It went from an OkCupid style platform or a Match or an eHarmony, where you do end up answering potentially hundreds of questions over the course of many, many minutes, potentially hours, and then you have to go find people and sort and search and message. All of that, Tinder collapsed into 4 taps on a phone. You log in with Facebook, the photo's already pulled from Facebook, you just give it permission for your location, permission for notifications, 1 swipe. If that's already a match, you have done 4 taps and you now have a person who likes you back on this platform. That was unheard of in the industry, where eHarmony was taking about 45 minutes to make a profile, Tinder made it about 4 to 8 seconds. So that was such an order of magnitude shift in what I call the ROI on intentional spend. Like you spend 1 minute of your attention, you may already have someone you can be chatting with who's a mile away or less. You can walk to them right now. Unheard of. And so that's why it saw such meteoric growth. It was really easy to share. I saw people in bars swiping together with their friends because it was a really fun game. We used to do one where you'd pass, that you always had to right swipe, and as soon as you got a match, you passed it to the next person. And the goal was just to see, the goal was to see who could rack up the most matches.
Yeah, imagine the people on the other side of that. Gary, you were at that time kind of sitting on the sidelines of the dating industry, right? But I'm wondering like what you thought when you saw the meteoric rise of Tinder.
Well, I think any way you can reduce barriers to use, whatever you're in, that it's not 40-minute questionnaire, it's 2 minutes, you're just gonna have more adoption. I mean, I think that's something we religiously worked on, you know. Actually started with 120 questions and got down to 10. So it makes sense, and mobile devices are so much easier to use. So I think it's a logical reason why it grew so fast.
Right, but were you know, when it took off, were you concerned at all? I wonder what your thoughts were then, or was it just like, oh, this is great?
I think it was great. Anything that could create more love is a positive thing.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
I mean it, yeah. I hear some do we hear some skepticism here or what?
We'll talk about that actually right now.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on those years because it's been written about to death, the years of Tinder. But we have been really for the last 3 years or so in a moment of kind of incredible fatigue with the industry. Can we pull up the third slide? So, I mean, listen, Tinder numbers are still enormous, right, as you can see. But you can see a fall. It's not precipitous because people have learned how to date online and don't really know how to date otherwise. A lot of people don't. But at the same time, Eventbrite, the events company, is seeing a big rise in in-person events, and like Gen Zers are done, right? They want to meet in person. Us millennials too, because we're tired if we haven't paired up yet. So, Steve, you and I have spoken kind of endlessly about this, but I wonder if you can articulate a turning point where the industry started going wrong.
Oh yeah, that's an easy one. Match Group decided to start buying up all of their competitors and all of the upstart apps, and then just immediately kind of crushing them in a way. Like they folded them into their platforms, they differentiated them so that Match could own you from age 13, which Tinder used to allow. They had like the 13 to 18 or 13 to 17 group, up through when they procured our time, which was 55 plus. Match owned you throughout your entire lifespan of dating, and there was always a Match Group property that was there to pick you up as soon as you phased out or aged out of one of the previous properties. And what ended up happening was the technology that undergirded the dating industry became so advanced that dating apps now scaling up to, what do we have now, 300 plus million people using them daily. Dating apps used the data science that they then employed people to do to, in essence, learn very precisely how much attention you're willing to spend, when you would leave, when you would come back, what kind of notifications would cause you to come back. They learn from social media, like the Facebooks, the Instagrams, of how to make products addictive. They became much more dopamine sensitive, so they were able to make it so that they could trigger the notification at just the right time of day for that user to get them to come back into the app. And so users got really burned out very quickly once they realized that they were having their attention farmed by these dating platforms for profit.
I mean, not that quickly, right? It took a while.
It took a while, sure. But I mean, people would go to different apps and hope they would have a different or better experience, and then they're like, well, I went on Hinge, and I went on OkCupid, and I tried Match, and it's like, okay, that's all Match Group. They own all of those. So it's really hard to get out of the grip of the largest players in the industry.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize, I mean, imagine this crowd might, but Match Group, which Gary is no longer involved with, just saying, we're not attacking Gary, owns Tinder, which is still the biggest app, even though there's probably the most dissatisfaction with it. Hinge, which is probably the fastest growing app right now. Match.com. And countless others, right? Plenty of Fish, which was huge at a certain point.
I'm sure they probably had McKinsey tell them this is the strategy, buy and crush.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if they necessarily, well, they've crushed OkCupid.
I'm just using your word.
They've crushed OkCupid, right, which was a darling of both, the industry and people. People loved it at a certain point.
Let's call it buy and juice. Like they really squeeze the juice out. So they're going to increase the prices. They're going to increase ad spend to get more users in. They're not necessarily going to invest in particularly creative R&D and new features that get users excited.
Sounds like every company in Silicon Valley.
It's pretty common. That is the model and the playbook.
Speaking of, your favorite phrase, ROI, unintentional spend, I also wanted you to tell us a little bit about a folder on your phone called Notification Hell, which you've told me about.
Oh yeah. Well, because I'm on so many different apps, I have a very direct experience of what every different app is trying to do to get my attention. And sometimes I'll receive upwards of 25 different notifications at noon from multiple different dating apps, all increasingly thirsty, trying to find what are they going to have to say in their notification to get me to finally open that app. And so I like treating myself as a guinea pig in order to better learn just what a lot of other people may be experiencing in their day-to-day. My notification hell folder is just a series of screenshots that I take when I'll have a notification at 2 p.m. from Tinder, and then at 2:05 p.m. from Tinder, and then at 4 p.m. from Tinder. And they get a little bit more desperate each time. Like, Steve, the person of your dreams may be swiping on someone else right now. What are you going to do about it?
What are you going to do about it?
Right, so this is when Gary said that, anything that creates more love, this is why I winced, right? Because of things like that. Can we cue up the last slide, which is AI?
You need AI to get the right slide.
We need AI. We need a human. Oh, sorry. Apologies. We answered a question about AI. I got confused. So what was that was like 50%, right, in the end of people who said that they would use AI to help them craft a message? Yeah, I think there was something like that. So the industry, like everyone else in this beautiful valley, is turning to AI in different ways. What do you see as the biggest danger here and the biggest promise, if there is any? And this is a question for both of you, because I know, Gary, you're working on some AI stuff, not in dating, but tell us about the downsides and the promise.
No, you go first.
Okay.
I want to hear about the downsides.
Okay, I'll start with the downsides then. For one, at this point, it's fully possible that when you look at a profile, that profile's text was written by AI, the photo is an AI-generated image. When someone messages you, that was their AI liaison doing the messaging. When you meet someone, it could be an AI that hired a rando off the street to show up on that date. Because all of that is now possible. Like, we live in the future. We are no longer, it's very surreal to me.
So you must be using Claudebot, right?
I refuse. I really try to limit my consumption of AI right now and my usage, because it is terrifying at times just to see how, I used it this morning, let's be real. But, so it's dangerous because there are so many different ways that AI can infiltrate, and it makes it harder and harder to get that sense of authenticity that people are craving and have been craving for over a decade from these platforms. And so while AI can help us in innumerable ways, there are certainly a number of ways in which it is causing us to go a little bit batty when it comes to hoping and praying for some authenticity, some vulnerability, some realness coming through on these apps.
You're making a face at me.
I'm not sure I agree. I've agreed almost with everything you've said. I actually think it can actually synthesize well. I probably spend 3-4 hours a day using various AIs, and I can actually, how it helps eliminate drudgery tasks and actually bring out the human in you. And I know it sounds contradictory, but I think it's all about how you do your prompts.
I completely agree. I'm not. You asked for the negative case.
Yeah.
There's a positive case to be made.
Well, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
So I've seen a couple different versions of AI in dating apps that I've found to be kind of fun. So my personal favorite that I've wanted for a long time just came out with the app Inni now does this. They were a personality typology app called Dimensional originally, and then I wanted them to launch a dating app, and they finally did. And they basically ask you a whole bunch of questions. It's a long questionnaire that asks you and learns about yourself and who you are. And then for every profile you see, it gives you an AI assessment of why you might be compatible with this person based on what you filled out. But the fun part is that in the chat, at any given point, you can, like the AI is just kind of hanging out there. So when you match with someone and you're talking to them, you can always just say, hey, Innie, like, how should I flirt with this person? Like, it'll be very fun because like, it gives you, you can ask like, why might we not be compatible? Why would we be extra compatible? What kind of first dates should we go on? But you're not asking it separately on your own, which is the more annoying kind of like you never feel authentic because you're going through the AI before talking to a person. The AI is in the chat with you. It doesn't have to be there unless you summon it. Like you can just chat as normal without the AI at all. But when you bring it in, it can give you a lot of new layers of complexity to how you engage with someone. So I think that's a fun and creative way. I also think when it comes to what Hinge has done recently, in the past year or two, they added features that have an AI that teaches you how to make a better profile. Because one of the biggest complaints by most women in particular about dating apps these days is that they cannot glean enough from someone's profile to know whether or not that person's worth meeting or compatible at all. Is this going to be a waste of time? Is it going to be dangerous? And now the AI can at least tell people when it sees their profiles, like, ooh, this prompt doesn't actually share anything meaningful about you. You should redo it. You should add more about yourself. And if it knows more about you, it can then give you more nuanced feedback about how to make a better profile.
Yeah, so I see it like a tool like any other tool, you know, whether it be or any other new platform, like going from email to web to mobile. It's a tool however you use it. You know, it can be used for good and bad.
Right, but it's also a tool if we take it a step further, and a lot of people do. We start dating AI, right? It happens, and it's happening more and more, and especially with men. So, thoughts?
I think that if an AI can outcompete you, then you certainly have some work to do on the dating frontier. I think it's incredibly easy for an AI to outcompete most humans on emotional availability, unfortunately. It may not, like, perceptible emotional, like it's not like it's true emotion necessarily. I don't know how many people are in the AI camp of AI actually does have feelings versus these are just numbers. But when it comes to therapy, at least, I think that the average AI right now is doing a better job than the average therapist. And it scares me a little bit because I've had therapists I love and I've had therapists I did not love, and I've had AI therapists that I found to be far more compelling than the therapists the human ones that I did not love.
Wait, but I don't know why you're putting the onus on competing with the other person, right? Like you're putting the onus on, let's say, a woman, right? Because a lot of the help that people are reaching for, it's men, right? So you're saying if a woman can't compete with the AI, there's a problem? Or, sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot like that, but you know what I mean?
There's a lot of, the challenges are quite deep because the AI can compete on multiple levels, because there are any number of AI that, I don't know how many people receive ads on Instagram or any other platform, basically it's like AI bots that are promising to be a girlfriend experience or a boyfriend experience. And typically if you're male, they're going to be in risque clothing as like an AI avatar, promising to send you nudes and to be able to compensate for all of the problems that you may have with your girlfriend already. It's really dark. Just how deep they're trying to kind of sink, like the AI companies are trying to sink their teeth into male loneliness, into horniness, into vulnerability. So I think the competition is in part from an AI, like not just stealing your partner, but also stealing your own attention from your personal development. Like it can kind of suck you out of your own world into their world pretty readily.
Right. Gary, what do you think about AI boyfriends?
You know, I'm back to this therapist that you interesting comment. You know, maybe those people need an AI therapist or a real therapist.
I'm wondering, Gary, like, you know, last year was the 30th anniversary of the founding of Match.com, right? Or of going online,
Yeah.
right?
On the internet, we had to go in email before,
right.
yeah.
So how do you think about the legacy of your idea? Sorry to bring out the big guns, but we have to ask.
No, legacy, I'm fine. A lot of cute babies out there, a lot of maybe not everything worked out for everyone, but I'm for it, you know?
You're for it?
I'm, like any legacy, there's always some negative, but I think overwhelming more connection. What's wrong with that?
Right. And I just wanted to ask kind of a last question for either of you, for both of you. where do you see hope in the industry? I mean, we spoke about this a little bit, but what would be a good equitable approach, and are we seeing any of it really now?
There are some industries, you talk about the churn issue. I think it's just part of the core of success leads to people leaving. So there's some industries that are tough, and I don't think that's going to go away. It's the nature of the beast.
Mm-hmm. Steve?
Hope for me comes from the fact that we've consolidated the cost and the timetables around finding love to something that's never even, I don't know that people have even imagined it being this effective. Like, it used to be that you had to go through potentially years of schooling and go to all these different community programs and get involved, like, in so many different ways just to find your forever person. And nowadays, you can literally pick up your phone, talk with an AI, and it makes a profile for you on demand, matches you to someone while you're still on the phone, and by the end of the day, you can already be on a date with someone, having only picked up your phone. You don't even need, I'm doing this as though we still use phones like that. Like, hands-free, you can be
You're aging yourself, man.
You can be making dinner as you're talking to your AI and have a date set up that night. Like, what technology has done.
I think that's the slow way. I think it looks at your click stream, and then you have your date in an hour.
You didn't get to that question yet. Where there is an AI that basically asks you there's a dating app that asks you to, it prompts your AI of choice, whatever liaison you choose to, you send it the prompt, and then it sends you basically a text file that you're then pasting back into the dating app, which it then uses as your profile. So it's asking your AI, like, tell me the DL, like, who is this person really? What are they asking you about? What are the things I should know? What are the things I should tell my future users to know? And so it does solve for a lot of the challenges of finding your forever person. I think that the technology is in its infancy still, but it's already completely collapsed that chasm that people could spend like years and years of their lives trying to find the right person, and now that can happen in seconds. And I think when we can solve a little bit better for the business model side of things, we'll see connection like we've never known before. Like, I'm really optimistic about it.
Good, well, okay. I'm gonna turn to some audience questions now. Steve, of the failed dating apps, which ones do you think were the most interesting or ahead of their time?
I think for me, I can't even speak to the specific names because if it fails that quickly, sometimes you just forget the name. But the ones that I really resonate with are ones that acknowledge that the superficial attraction is something that can get done very quickly. Like, it doesn't take more than a panel of faces and bodies for the average person.
Yeah.
Yes, like, that is a solve. Like, dating apps know how to find out who you're attracted to, and then being able to show you more people you're attracted to is not the hard part anymore. So I think that most apps that try to get that out of the way early are doing you a service. Whereas the ones that don't do that, the ones that blur the faces and make it so you have to like chat with someone who you can't see and slowly reveal their photos as you chat, I find that to be nauseatingly frustrating because it's basically causing you to try to develop a bond with someone who ultimately you will not be attracted to. Like statistically, most people, like if you look at the average swipe rate for women on Tinder, it's roughly 96 to 99% swiping left. The average 30-year-old man has a less than 1% right swipe ratio, that like people want them, swipe right on them, like them, less than 1% of the time. And in many cases, it's less than 0.1% of the time. And so what that means is if you're chatting with someone, you're investing labor and time and effort into finding out if you're compatible with someone, finding out if you like them, only to have 99.9% of the time, there not be the kind of attraction that you would have needed to get over the threshold to meet, then you're just wasting people's time. So the apps that fail and fail quickly tend to be the ones that they pretend that they're not superficial or that humans aren't truly superficial. I think we need to accept that part of ourselves and then focus more on the compatibility side. So the apps I really like are ones that they accept the superficiality, they do the attraction side of things effectively, but then when it comes to could you be a longer term fit with this person? Like, is it really worth investing time and energy in this particular person of all the people you're already attracted to? That's where I think most of the work still has to be done because that's what you'll also have people be willing to spend more money on because it's worth sometimes, I mean, I've seen people pay over $250,000 for 5 dates.
Yeah.
250,000.
Yep.
Anyone hadn't heard? Gary,
well, I think also we should get away from the misnomer that one size or one business model or one use case fits all. I think there's people, the superficial works well, and then there's the moderate level, and then there's the deeper level. So there's a bunch of, it's probably as varied as there are consumers.
There's a couple of questions that are asking about how these dating services, which ones have had the most success in terms of long-term relationships. There's also a question about Operation Match and how many long-term relationships has it created. There's really no way of knowing, right? I mean, very few of these services track this. eHarmony would boast a lot about how many marriages it created, but then we have to trust the company, and I don't trust the company. I mean, really, there's just, especially with the dating apps themselves, it's almost, I mean, they maybe could, but this is very, very...
You could probably pull credit card data, then pull marriage data if that's the goal.
Very
and
difficult to track.
Yeah,
I think
don't
an
know.
academic would have to do
An
it
academics.
longitudinally over many years, but it hasn't really been done. Operation Match, that's even more impossible, but I will say that I've spoken to a couple of people who met that way. Question about my favorite website, and this is a question for Steve. Farmers Only, why?
Why use it, or?
Why does it exist? I mean,
I think that there are a lot of people who live outside of major metro areas where it's incredibly hard to find anyone, because right now most dating apps they only have the funds to invest in one city at a time, and then if they grow, they can invest in another city. But if you try to launch globally from day one, you're going to have users that are so far apart that they come on the app and they say, I don't see anyone within 500 miles of me, why am I here? And then they leave. So you've basically wasted the cost of that user's acquisition. And so it makes sense for most dating apps to launch city by city. And I say city because most apps are not launching in the countryside. And so Farmers Only was trying to account for that. And they did mostly billboard advertising. That was one of their big drivers. So it's finding a way to get people who are otherwise just not living in cities to still find connection and love. And one of the things I liked about exploring the platform was that most of the profiles didn't come off as fake or gross or misleading in any way. It just felt like it was very down-to-earth people. And I thought that that was refreshing, and it kind of just fit. Like they did a great job of branding themselves to attract the kind of user who is exactly in the demographics that they're trying to serve.
it's been around for a very long time. Actually, people forget this. If anyone knows any Farmers Only daters, please tell me, because I've tried to solicit them through Tractor Supply bulletin boards.
Great idea.
In the Midwest. It has not worked, everyone. Here's a question. Why don't dating apps charge more for higher quality matches? I'd pay $200 a month if they'd show me, it disappeared, the most compatible people with me.
You know, I've thought about that.
Yeah?
I'd say give it free, and then we get 5% of your revenue for your income and stuff like that.
Okay.
Or the savings when you get together, something like that. It's just hard to track.
Yeah. What do you think, Steve?
I have two thoughts. There are apps that do charge a lot. Like
Yeah.
The League charges
Yeah.
$2,500 a month for their highest tier
The League?
subscription. So you are essentially getting people to pay their way into an elitist match pool. I personally think that a strategy that I don't think any dating app has tried this yet, but I think there should be a bounty system within dating apps where if you show the marriage certificate and you prove that like the dating app found it, then you should get a payout and the dating app should get a payout. Like there should be a better system of payouts that go to people who report success so that people are encouraged and incentivized to do so. And it should be legally verifiable. Like you see the marriage certificate. It's not just people holding hands and pretending that they're married now in order to get a payout. But
Right. I mean, that's a very simple also way, and we don't even have to ask them about marriage.
Well, you're assuming that's the goal.
Right. Like we could also be asking a lot more, like, did you have fun on a couple of dates with this person that you went to? And Hinge says it tracks some of that, right? But I think
We looked at that. The problem is it's kind of like doing a criminal check. It's such a buzzkill.
right, but
Because
it could make
people
these
think-
services better.
Yeah, but people want aspirational, and when they start thinking about if it doesn't work, and it's like doing the reviews.
I will add one more thing to this, though. There is an app called Manifold.love. I don't know if it's on its way out or like it had its heyday maybe like a year and a half ago, but it was based on the rise of prediction markets. So it basically let you predict any two people. You could append a probability to whether or not they'll get together, whether they'll message, whether they'll date. And so it's following in the footsteps of
Prediction markets.
Prediction markets.
Wow.
And I think that does have potential in the love industry because sometimes there's a funness in
Yeah.
looking at two people and just being like, could they be
But
compatible
how many
by
times
looks
have your
alone?
friends gave you bad setups? So I
Well,
don't
that's
know.
where I think we'd learn from the data. Like my personal thing that I'd love to see exist in the world is an AI versus humans matchmaking company where there is a payout that goes to either the humans or AI each week, and the AI have their suggestions for who's going to match. The humans can log in and submit their suggestions.
Spending too much time on Polymarket, I think.
Someone asked how are dating sites ruling out AI-created candidates? That's probably a question more for the companies. I'm sure they're not very good at it. I don't know, Steve, do you know?
When you say ruling out AI-created candidates, does that mean like users that are not actual people? They're just
That's what I assume. Yeah, the question is.
It's quite difficult. Like
Yeah.
dealing with scammers is I think the current cost of romance scams globally is over $1.5 billion. And given that it's only a $10 billion industry at best, like that's a huge chunk of the industry that's just going right out the door to romance scams. And so being better year over year at tracking down where these scams are coming from and all sources of fakery, that's an incredible Herculean task because
Yeah.
the scams come in, like the best scammers are way more human seeming than the worst humans and even the mediocre humans. Like it's really easy for scammers to pass under the radar because even AI now are increasingly just good at emulating humans. And so it's incredibly hard to detect when you have an actual scammer versus a human who's just not that good at humaning.
Yeah. I mean, Gary, scams when you were still at the company, that wasn't yet a common thing, right? You still had too few users at the time, right?
I think the user base was big enough. It was, people would call up complaining, well, this guy didn't call me back. Got a lot of those, show up.
What a
and go.
scammer, right?
Yeah, yes. That was the largest people being unhappy.
With the ghosters. Well,
Yeah,
can you imagine now? What a
exactly.
quaint time.
Right.
Someone asked how much of online dating, as we've discussed today, is US-centric. Can you speak about the online dating market and subcultures in different countries?
I mean, very early on, we were looking at Indian matrimony and things like that. It gets into you cannot just create the world's largest database and that's it. That is a misnomer. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So that's why a set of brands does work with different models and different countries, different norms.
Right. I mean, all of the big apps that we've discussed are global, right? So a lot of these dynamics are global. There are, certain apps and sites that are tailored towards certain cultures and certain countries, and they're fascinating. Not to plug my book, but I write about them a lot. But India, for instance, enormous market, and it has a tradition of arranged marriage, which is still quite vibrant, and the apps and sites help with it in some ways, right? Like you have parents who chat to other parents, right, instead of the users themselves. I don't know, Steve, do you have any other thoughts on the cultural side?
Yeah, I mean, every country will have its own norms and laws and regulations around what's even allowable, what kinds of profile information are displayable or collectible. And so that really does alter what a dating app is capable of putting out in a given market. And then there's a lot of usage trends. Sometimes it's a gender disparity in terms of like which kinds of users are more likely to log in the first place and also when they log in. I think in the East Asian market, I noticed there's a lot more emphasis on live streaming, like the point to multi-point. And part of that is just huge gender disparities, in part due to the one-child policy in China that led to a lot of gender disparities in the online dating frontier.
Wait, can you paint a picture of what live streaming dating is? Because it's pretty wild.
Yeah, if you have an incredibly low probability of meeting anyone because there aren't that many people around, then a dating app may not succeed if they're just trying to like find you someone to actually meet up with because there aren't people around. But if they do a live stream, then rather than getting no attention, if let's say you're a male user, you could at least have multiple live streamers that you could give attention to and receive attention from by virtue of giving them digital gifts. And so the digital gifting economy is quite popular in Asia and East Asia because there is simply less total female attention going around. And so when one woman has the capacity to give attention to 10,000 men at a time on a live stream and still collect gifts.
Like OnlyFans, I don't know.
I mean, the line is blurry, right?
It sounds pretty
It is
blurry.
rapidly blurring between,
Yeah.
like a lot of, I mean, Tinder even nowadays is kind of like a feeder into the porn industry because it's giving users, it's a combination of the confidence boosting procrastination, where you can just like feel good about yourself when you get a match, but it's also, they're going to try to show you people that you find attractive. And those people increasingly may be the model types who also have an OnlyFans or also will send you over to their Twitter or to their like off-site in some way.
We have to wrap up shortly. That's why I'll ask this question that we've touched upon. But the question that got most votes from everyone else is, what do you think the next successful evolution of dating apps will be? For both of you, I think. Gary, you have anything?
You know, I think the role of, I know people are nervous about it, but AI in a positive way, or just as a tool and infiltrating all aspects of the kind of, I'll call it the dating workflow, the relationship workflow. And I think we're seeing that already.
Steve?
Yeah, I think reducing friction was the trend for a very long time. Then Tinder made it so we had very, very little friction. I think AI is making it so we'll have potentially even less, although the current iterations of AI are a little bit more frictionful because it's like making you do a lot of back and forths, sometimes in a chat interface, which just feels like you're going back to the late 90s. And so I think the kind of like hands-free, voice-first AI giving you on-demand matchmaking and setting up the dates for you via a separate liaison, like that I think is going to be the likely future because it does totally reduce the friction and it allows you to find people you're attracted to up front and not have to do any typing or clickety-clacking.
Kind of like Claudebot, it looks at your calendar, it
Yep.
looks at your bank account, it knows when you can do the date, and it sets it up.
And you're going to not flake as often because
Yep.
you have the
Right.
AI tied into your calendar already.
Right.
So it feels like the
It's like
future.
Calendarly,
Yeah.
Yep,
I don't know, sounds scary.
It sounds easier.
sounds easier.
All right, I think we're at time. Thank you so much to Jeff, Gary, and Steve, and thank you all for listening and tuning in.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Steve. What a really great evening. And I was pleased to hear that in-person events, I know you're talking about dating events, but in-person events are growing. And I love in-person events, and I love that everybody's here tonight. We would love your feedback for tonight. Again, our QR code, please give us your feedback. We use that to help improve events. As many of you know, we are collecting museum, and we actually have an Operation Match questionnaire in our collection. Our mission here is really about the past, present, and future. You saw that tonight in our panel. We talked about the past, we talked about the present, we talked about AI and the future of dating. We collect, that's our past. We use that downstairs in our exhibits to really tell the story and inspire future generations. And we do that here with our events as well. As you can imagine, it's expensive to run a museum. It's really hard for a cultural institution. You see that QR code here again. So really, any gift would be appreciated. And so just really thank you all for being supporters and being members. We have a great event coming up. Our next one is March 11th. It's actually the 50th anniversary of Apple this year. We're going to be doing a whole number of Apple events. We're going to be hosting a special exhibit on Apple prototypes. And on March 11th, David Pogue has a new book coming out on Apple, and we're going to have a lot of the early founders of Apple on our stage. And with that, I want to wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day. And I also want to say, if you need a Valentine's Day gift, our store is now online. Yes, nothing says I love you like a gift from CHM. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you, guys, again.